Hello and welcome to Daily Politics. Reaching you from Trust TV here in Abuja. I am Suleiman. On Daily Politics tonight, I have with me two distinguished guests to walk us all through it. As the PDP shops for a new leadership ahead of the 2023 general elections, the questions Nigerians are asking is the opposition party heading in the right direction? My guests for tonight, Malam Shehu Gabam, the National Secretary of the SDP, and Malam Illiyasu Gadu, a columnist and social commentator, are here with me to walk you through it. Thank you and welcome, gentlemen. But before then,
Thank you.
We will wait and take a minute to bring you a roundup of political news. Just stay on.
The chairman of the APC State Congress Appeal Committee in Niger State, Chief Raymond Murphy, said that his committee did not receive any petition or complaint regarding the recently conducted state congresses of the ruling All Progressives Congress APC in the state. Declaring the appeal committee's exercise as open, inclusive and democratic, Chief Murphy said from ward congresses through local government up to the state level, the APC congresses in Niger State were splendid. He said the state adopted the option of consensus in which every interest group was represented and carried along. The National Secretariat of the APC had set up a panel appeal for each state to hear the grievances of aggrieved party members over the recently conducted congresses. The National Assembly Joint Committee on INEC and Electoral Matters said that the Independent National Electoral Commission is free to transfer results of Anambra State governorship election electronically. The chairman of the Senate Committee on INEC, Senator Kabiru Gaya, stated this while briefing journalists after a meeting between the chairman of INEC, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, and the joint panel on the November 6 election in Anambra. Senator Gaya said INEC could transfer the result to its server as they are announced at polling units, just like what it did in Edo and Ondo states. Earlier, the INEC chairman told the committee that the commission had deployed all the non-sensitive materials to all the local government areas of the state. The camps of former governors Ibikunle Amosun of Ogun State, Ibrahim Shekarau of Kano State, Rauf Aregbesola of Osun State, and others have shunned the appeal panels constituted to address the crisis trailing the state congresses of the All Progressives Congress APC. The caretaker committee of the APC had days after the congresses constituted appeal panels to address crisis trailing the exercise. In Osun State, the camp of the Minister of Interior, Rauf Aregbesola, under the auspices of the Osun Progressive, said lack of confidence in the appeal committee made them shun it. In Kano, the camp of Ibrahim Shekarau, known as G7, also shunned the appeal committee sent to the state. Ibrahim Shekarau and some lawmakers held a parallel congress at Donguza area of the state, which produced Ahmadu Haruna Danzago as state chairman. The Speaker of the Plateau State House of Assembly, Honorable Abok Ayuba Nuhu, has been impeached. 16 out of the 24 members of the Assembly voted in favor of the impeachment at plenary Thursday. The House also elected Sanda Yakubu as his replacement. Yakubu hails from Pingana constituency of Basa local government area of the state. At about 5:30 a.m. on Thursday, members of the Assembly, including those of the PDP, converged on the chamber of the House. When the issue of the impeachment was tabled, the House became rowdy as tempers flared. PDP members who were loyal to the Speaker took the mace to prevent the impeachment, but the APC members who were in the majority dragged the mace and placed it in its position and went ahead with the process. Our correspondent reports that before members of the House converged on the House, the road leading to the Assembly was blocked by security operatives.
Welcome back. Let me start with you, Malam Shehu Gabam, as a politician and National Secretary of the Social Democratic Party. What exactly is going on in the PDP?
Well, I will say this straight ahead that PDP have drilled from the original ideology that was developed by the founding fathers of the party, who have sacrificed their life, forfeited their individual differences, and decided to come together and form a formidable party that can govern the country and take the military back to barrack. That was the reason why the likes of late Rimi, Sula Lamido, Chief Solomon Lar, and so on and so forth, had the first meeting that's called G7. All issues were discussed, ideas were generated how to build a mega party. At the G34, Alex Okome and others were invited to make it a national platform.
Is the PDP still a mega party now? Can we still call it a mega party?
It cannot be a mega party because they have drilled. I've been a founding member of the party from its foundation stages. I know all processes that led to the development of PDP. You know, the elections and so on and so forth. The party that have ruled for 16 years to drop to this level, you know that they have disconnected with their foundation. They have disconnected with the original vision of the founding fathers of the party. People who have no idea of what it takes to run a political structure have hijacked a political structure. So the issue of fairness, justice, and equity within the party is gone. You have imposition, just the way you summarize the issue of the incoming chairman by consensus. They cannot even afford to have an election, just like the way PDP had consensus. So these are issues that kill political party. It takes a career politician to manage a political structure.
So if they are no longer a mega party, Malam Illiyasu, you've been a veteran journalist and public affairs commentator for a long time, and also a diplomat. If they are no longer how can we describe the PDP now?
Well, straight away, I think we don't have to pull any punches describing PDP. It is sleepwalking to disaster. And it's a party that has derailed, as my colleague here has said, from its original concept. It's a party that has, lost its bearings. It's a party that is heading straight to the abyss. And there's nothing that can save it because, as he rightly said, the people who did not know, who did not connect with the original concept of the party are hijacking the party. They have no sense of ownership, no sense of decorum, no sense of what it takes to run a political party. Their own idea of running a political party is to create confusion here and there so that their own ideas, their own agenda can, prevail over the party. This is not the party of Chief Solomon Lar, the party of Rimi, the party of Alex Okwemi. This is just an all-comers affair, a bazaar. So PDP will get its comeuppance, and that's it. Let's face it. That's what is going to happen.
Do we see the PDP going into extinction as a party that no longer exists?
Very likely, because in the last convention that led to emergence of Secondus, I was the DG of Professor Tunde Adeniran to be the chairman of PDP. And of course, the party leaders agreed then that the chairmanship should be zoned to the southwest. But all of a sudden, an interested governor decided to abort.
Which governor?
The governor of Rivers State. He decided to say that I'm bringing my own Secondus to be the chairman of the party. So the process was aborted. And of course, people were almost somehow being compromised at the convention. Before the convention, I was a member of the last committee that was constituted to review why PDP lost election. We generated some of the best ideas. We collected people's opinion. We put it in the booklet, submitted it. The NWC of the party adopted it. The NEC of the party adopted it. And it was agreed that it would be operational at the convention. But the convention happened to be the worst convention that led to the emergence of Secondus. So the entire process was cut off, And then what we predicted, because I had a press conference then, I said that nobody will revive PDP the way it is going. Because if governors can hijack a political structure and determine how a political structure functions without minding his own business how to govern the states, then of course that party, like he said, will go into abyss. There's no individual with any capacity that can stop that from happening.
But people are saying that even the APC itself is not better governed or led than the PDP, that the APC itself will implode after Buhari.
Well,
first of all, do you see that happening? And if so, what are the implications for
I'll have to
Nigerian democracy?
Again, I'll have to agree, unfortunately.
Okay.
Because, well, let's look at it principally, clearly. What is APC? APC is PDP in diaspora.
Okay.
It is an annex of PDP. And it is those people who couldn't stay in PDP that moved to APC, and they carried their own idiosyncrasies into APC. So APC is actually, we're seeing the last kick of a dying horse. And what's really, saving APC from going to extinction is the fact that the party and Buhari is there. But I bet you, from now to 2023, APC and PDP, there will be a race between them who is going to die first.
So what are we going to do? Are we going to replace either the two of them with the Social Democratic Party or with the Labour Party, or which of the parties? Because Nigeria must have political parties.
If we follow the
Constitution requires it.
We follow the political metamorphosis of the whole parties in Nigeria, and our migration from PDP to SDP, a lot of research was done. And our convention was rated one of the best when we had the convention. We had 5 presidential aspirants at a go. But of course, we were under threat by both the PDP and the APC because we are the emerging political party that is coming up. Because we learned from the mistakes of the PDP, and then we created a new innovation, a sense of belonging. And of course, we also factor in people that are with disability. We gave them forms free, women forms free, and so on, just to make sure that people have a sense of participation. But beyond that, the tragedy of APC is this: the political migration in the process of the election, was done in the way and the manner that completely consumed whatever thinking and concept the founders of APC, the merger of APC, developed at a go. Even though they have no blueprint on how to govern the country, they have never expected they're going to win the election. Because it's not just APC that won the election.
Would you say that they still don't have a blueprint now?
No.
To govern the country?
Where is the blueprint? Where is it?
Okay.
Mention one. Most of the projects they are doing, they inherited those projects.
Okay.
That I don't know any new project they started from the scratch and they commissioned it. But I heard the head of the president, additional, that was saying that this coming year will be a year of commissioning project up to the end. So we are waiting to see those projects that will be commissioned.
And we're in October.
And we're in October already. So it is not about a party issue. It's about the country that is being sucked into unnecessary crisis, into unnecessary gap that we cannot cross. As it is now, the economy is going extremely very bad. There's no any investment that is coming into a country that is not secured. The political environment is very chaotic, it's very violent, and then you are devaluing your currency for no excuse, because all nations that devalue their currency is simply because they expect investors to come in with foreign currency and exchange it into large volume of naira to create industry or investment into the society. But in our situation right now, how do you devalue your naira in an atmosphere of insecurity?
We'll come to that in a short while. Malam Illiyasu, he is saying that the APC lacks a blueprint. If they, 6 years into government, can we say that they don't have any blueprint for government, that they have just chanced and get crashed into the Nigerian presidency 6 years into, because they've won election twice in 2015 and 2019. Although, of course, the issue is PDP convention.
Yeah, the APC generally is at 6s and 7s. And it's a clone of PDP, really. It has not been able to come out of the shell of PDP, because it really didn't have, the whole thing about APC was Buhari. Just get him to power, absolutely, and then that's it. Mm-hmm. Now Buhari is coming to the end of his experiment in power.
Yes.
And the APC guys are actually, working, like they're headless chickens, because they really don't know what will happen to them. The patchwork of arrangements that put them together is coming unstuck. Once Buhari leaves for Daura or wherever, they are going to start looking at themselves and say, what do we do? And already daggers are coming out. So, well, the APC itself is also in danger of self-immolation. So, and all that is actually because the politicians, the political actors, the political elite in this country have learned no lessons.
Okay.
And that's also
what are those lessons?
The lesson of really creating a party that is ideologically, has an ideological direction. Let's go back to the Second Republic, for instance. We had at least 5 political parties. There was the PRP, there was, all of them stayed within the defiance of the ideological agenda. PRP had 2 states, Kano and Kaduna in those days. And they stayed within the ideological script of the party. MPN was centrist and all that, and it stayed within that. MPP, so people really, judge themselves according to the ideological script that they belonged. And there was pretty much stable political, movement. But here, somebody would be in APC or would be in PDP today. The next moment he's in APC, and then he starts talking about, I've seen the light or something like that. But we all know that he didn't see any light because what he saw was that the EFCC was behind him, and he wanted to get out of EFCC hands. So he moved to that. And then, of course, a former chairman of the party said, when you come over here, your sins are forgiven. So that's what's happening. They are a party without any six, and that is why Nigerians are so disappointed, because we thought that the APC would give us that direction that PDP didn't give us. But APC has now, Buhari has given it, it was a kind of fig leaf president or fig leaf figure that they rally around. Now he's going, so APC was also
left.
We watch APC dance itself to its death, just like PDP.
Thank you. National Secretary, SDP. We have a convention of Nigeria's largest opposition party coming up in 2 days, on Saturday and on Sunday. What are the issues? Do you think, what are the core issues that would define that convention?
I don't see any issue, because what led to the defeat of the PDP is imposition.
Okay.
The convention is about imposition. It's not about election. They have already decided to impose certain people that will satisfy their
certain
strategic...
people like who?
Well, you mentioned Ayuche.
Okay.
That will satisfy their interest of 2023. It was a mathematics of few people who did their mathematics and assumed that by bringing A, B, C, D, they will have their way. But they forgot that the country have changed. Things have shifted.
What has changed?
A lot of things have changed. What we are going through, even in terms of security, the political behavior of an average Nigerian have changed. His mentality towards leaders have changed. An average Nigerian asks questions about how the resources of the country are being governed. And then in a situation whereby you impose someone on a position, and the competent people that ought to have been in that position were taken out, there's no way such party will continue to survive in such kind of behavior. Don't forget that in 1999, this imposition was also challenged. I was the first person who took PDP to court when they said they have zoned the presidency, Rimi cannot contest. Eventually, Rimi contested the presidency. I have never believed in zoning. Zoning is very destructive in the political environment. It encourages regional issues, ethnic issues, tribal issues. It takes away competency. It takes away experience. It encourages criminality in power. Because when you zone a power to a particular area, to a particular individual that have no capacity to govern the country will pay for it just the way we are paying for it. Sentiments brought in a lot of people into government, not competency, not experience, nothing at all.
Thank you with that. Zoning is destructive. It takes away competency and all of the things that he has said. But some people would say that Nigeria is a diverse country where people associate their sense of belonging to the national project to the extent to which somebody from their part of the country can have a chance at the highest office in the land. Would you say that that's not a good thing, particularly as being used in the PDP convention now?
I would liken the issue of zoning to somebody who seeks comfort in action, because he feels this is a comfort zone for him. So he doesn't feel that there is need for him to, to go out there and go onto the hustings and get something out of the political situation. We, at 61 years old, we shouldn't be talking about zoning. And in fact, we've crossed that divide a long time ago. Chief Abiola did not win on the basis of zoning.
Absolutely.
Before that time, in fact, General Eradua defeated Falai in Lagos, in the southwest. So we were in the process. Of course, you could say the military truncated that move, but then this was an incubated process that should have, gone ahead, so that when we open the new political arena, then these things will be there. But if we now continue to talk about zoning from here to eternity, it will not leave Nigerian political scene, because people would combine it. You now talk about from zoning, there will be macro zoning, mini zoning, and all kinds of zonings.
Yes.
And at the end of the day, it will say, okay, it's been zoned to my geopolitical area. I'll say, okay, it's not been zoned to my state, down to the local government. Even within the local government, you are going to have, it was this area that had it the last time. So we are Nigerians. And so we need to be able to take away the feeding bottle from the politicians. We should be able to tell them, look, go out. Nigeria is your constituency, especially people who are looking for presidency and other positions. Go out there, sell yourself to the president, to Nigerians, because as he said, the perception of Nigerians now has changed.
So in this case, would it be okay for the chairman of the PDP to come from the north? Let us assume that Dr. A.H. Ayu does in fact emerge as the
Let me give you an
PDP
example.
chairman. Would it still be okay for the president of Nigeria to still emerge?
Let me give you an example. We always talk
after 8 years of Buhari.
We always talk about the examples of America.
Okay.
In some of our political calculations or political analysis. But you should know, for instance, that when President Clinton was in power, his vice, President Clinton, was from the state of Arkansas, which is in the southern part of the United States. His vice, Al Gore, was from Tennessee, all from the southern part of America. He didn't raise any hawkers because what they had already gone ahead. That we should be able to compel our politicians to think ahead and not to rely on the kind of ideas that are being bandied about. The PDP convention, if you ask me, is going to be about two persons. If it's going to hold, that is.
Yes.
Wike and Atiku and Sub. Because nothing else is going to be discussed. They are going to drag themselves, and at the end of the day, there will be no center. So at the end of the day, really, we should be able to tell our politicians, look, the subsidy is out. We're no longer going to give you subsidy on power. Go out there, talk to Nigerians, go to the nooks and crannies of Nigeria, sell yourselves, just like Abiola did. Sell yourselves. Abiola defeated Topa right in his polling booth in front of his house. He didn't have to do anything. All he did was to go out and sell himself and told the Nigerian people, this is who I am, this is what I am, this is where I'm going. And Nigerian people bought it.
So as somebody who represents the alternative parties in Nigeria, separate from the PAPC and the PDP, what would you like to see define the convention on Saturday?
Well, as rather to what he has said, because I don't want, it's very important.
Okay.
Nigeria have tested zoning. Both the minority and the major tribes have ruled this country. And we have seen their pattern of leadership. There's nothing that have changed apart from conspiracy of elites in power to loot the resources of the country. The minority of minority have been the president of Nigeria. So it has been tested, and it has never produced anything positive. It has rather divided the country more. Okay. Secondly, like I have said, the convention was prearranged. The positions has been given out to individuals. So it's just affirmation, of what they have done, because the law says that the convention must approve what the NWC have done. The NWC is in charge of running affairs of the party on a daily basis. The NEC have the power to decide the fate of anybody in the party, and the convention approve all those things. So the convention is mainly organized to approve the arrangement that has been done, which is undemocratic, which is imposition, is what they are going to approve. There is no any other activity like you have mentioned. It's a struggle to control the structure of PDP between few people who have resources and they feel that they will have their way in doing that, and then take a lot of people out. Now, the way forward,
thank you,
as SDP, in the last 1 month, we've been going through a series of consultations. A lot of people have been reaching out to us because the possibility of having a major party as a substitution to PDP and APC is in the minds of majority of Nigerians. They have seen
the third force, the idea of the third force.
The idea of the third force. Whether you call it third force, I don't know, but
or the rescue.
People are looking for another platform that can give them a sense of belonging, and then would be different from other parties that have to deal with pre-election matters before election. Because what led to the decay and confidence in the political process is simply treachery have taken over most of the issues. So you have to sort out all those issues before election. You have to restore confidence in the system. You have to restore trust in governance, and so on and so forth. And this is part of what we did. We rejiggled the SDP as a party. We open it up, and we invite everybody to come on board. Generate more ideas. If it means SDP to sit down and do another adjustment, we'll do it, because nobody have a monopoly of knowledge. You need more head to think together, reason together, and define a solution to the problem we are going through in Nigeria today. Any other party that do not consider how to solve the problem of Nigeria as a first priority, have no basis to go into elections, because the country is drifting. People are dying. Villages are perishing. And nobody is doing anything. No deterrence is being created. Apart from recently, where we saw the government is being consumed by this crisis, and of course, they purchased some necessary equipment needed by our security agencies to do the needful. Okay. But apart from that, there's no any other way you can give credit to the government based on what is going on today. The anarchy is ensuing virtually everywhere. The Southeast is already on its knees. And this thing can boomerang to any other place. Just like we didn't expect the kind of boundary taking over the largest part of the northwest, to its knees. So these are challenging moments. You have a country with over 200 million people demanding for what is not available. And there's no government that is answering the younger generations.
Into these issues in relation to the whole idea that the problem is not even some of the, maybe not governance, but the structure itself, the fact that we have a faulty constitution, that maybe the problem, what needs to change is not just the government or PDP or APC, but the constitution itself. But when we come back from the break, we'll be looking into that. Thank you for staying with us, viewers. We'll be going on a break, and we'll be back shortly. Please don't go away. Thank you. Welcome back. If you are just joining us, this is Daily Politics on Trust TV. The 1999 Constitution is blamed for everything that is wrong with Nigeria. Some say the Constitution needs to be amended. Others say it just needs to be thrown out altogether and a new one drawn up in its place. Yet, none of the attempts to amend the Constitution has so far succeeded. But last week, Baba Gana Kingibe, Nigeria's envoy to the Chad Republic and the Lake Chad basins, at an event said that the unity of Nigeria is negotiable. That is a new one. And yesterday, Governor of Sokoto State, Waziri Tambuwal, said the fastest way to change the constitution is for the president to send an executive bill to the National Assembly seeking establishment of either a referendum commission or that the process for a referendum be introduced into the constitution. In short, what the governor is advocating is that we should have a referendum on the 1999 constitution or any other constitution in its place. What do all this mean to Nigerians? What do all this mean to the average voter and average Nigerian in their homes, in their workplaces and all that? My guest and I will be looking at it once more. Thank you for being here with us, gentlemen. I started with you earlier, so maybe I can start with Malam Illiyasu. Is the problem the people or the constitution?
Well, let me start by saying that you did mention that two eminent personalities have talked about the fault, have admitted that the fault in the structure of the constitution and perhaps even the country itself.
Yes.
But let's interrogate those two people. Baba Gana Kingibe has been in and out of government, or he has been in government. In fact, he's still within government. He has served in several capacities. He was ambassador to Greece. He was in the cabinet office. He has been, a major presence in government. And all this while, he has not seen any reason to talk about this since. Why is he talking about it now?
Exactly.
Aminu Tambuwal is the governor of Sokoto State. As I speak to you now, parts of his state are being hounded by bandits asking communities to pay ransom or to pay levies, taxes, so that they could they could have peace, or they could listen. He's out there in Port Harcourt talking about things that are out of reach. He himself was a former member of House of Reps, and then before he became a minority leader, then he became a speaker, then he became a governor, and he was also aspiring to be president. Now, at one time, he is still also, in the reckoning. Now, these two gentlemen represents the kind of political people we have, always shifting the goalpost, not accepting responsibility for their acts, or acts of omission or commission. And they are saying that we should go round and round and round again to the next rota of political gerrymandering. This country has got to be the greatest laboratory of political experiments that have not worked, right from the time of the British. And the same people keep recycling the same thing. Yes, from the very moment the British came, from 1865 right to this very day, when we had government and governance by ourselves, we have been going round and round by people who are insincere intrinsically in their demands, leaving the substance and chasing the shadow. Governance,
in other words, the problem is not the constitution, but the government, the governance. Do you agree with that analysis? Don't you think that there is something that Nigeria can tweak, or that is wrong with the constitution that can be changed or amended?
Is there any perfect constitution in the world?
Okay.
No country on earth has a perfect constitution.
Okay.
Every society is about periodical, reviewing the situation and the circumstances that it found itself. There's nothing wrong with the current constitution of Nigeria. There's everything wrong with the players.
Okay.
Who
not the game,
who
but the players.
Supposed to drive the constitution, implement what the constitution have said, prosecute what the constitution have said. Everything is wrong with them. You see, when you bring somebody with lack of capacity to drive a process, there's no way he can drive a process. He would look for who to blame. I'm shocked hearing this from Governor Tambuwal. Politicians have messed up this country. Because of political interest, they decide to mess up and make statements that are reckless, very unguided, very dangerous.
But he was speaking at an MBA conference.
Wherever he's
the
speaking
Nigerian
from, he is a lawyer.
Association. So maybe that's the context determines, maybe the context shaped the fact that he's speaking to a group of lawyers, about Nigerian constitution.
Well, I heard most of them who have spoken, including Governor Wike, who said that the president have no authority, have no power to promulgate executive order 10 that have to do with funding of the local government. He's going to challenge it. Now, these are the kind of mentalities we are talking about in governance. There's a failure of people that are privileged to be in government to understand the power that resides within their domain and how to operate those powers. And all they can do is to make political statements that will further aggravate the situation of the country and to the detriment of the larger society. Because the constitution they are talking about, when you listen to all the submissions about review of the constitution, or referendum, who is talking about referendum when you have the National Assembly? Elected people from various constituencies. How do you define a referendum? Number two, most of these people that you are mentioning today, that are talking about, it is not people of Nigeria that drafted the constitution. Who are those who drafted the constitution? They are talking about the military. Are the military men not Nigerians?
Okay.
And in any case, among those who drafted the constitution, you have Professor Gadu. Is he a military man? There are inputs of Nigerians. You know, if you look at our constitution, look at the constitution of other countries, we are not doing bad at all. That do not mean that the Nigerian constitution is a perfect constitution. But let us implement what we have in the constitution first. These governors have defunded the local government in their state, have killed the structure of local governments in their state. They have defunded the state assembly in their state. They have defunded the state judiciary in their states. They have defunded virtually all structures that ought to have functioned and make a state viable. And they are the same people who are discriminating their own people in their own state, denying some tribes that don't belong to them in their own state from vying any position. So let them implement what this constitution have said in their respective states. Let them allow the three arms of government to function in their own respective state before they start pointing at fingers. When you have National Assembly, people who are elected from unit constituencies representing people in the state, every issue should be tabled before the National Assembly.
But the same National Assembly, Illiyasu, some people, is the same National Assembly that goes round across the country that even as we speak is in the process of constitutional review as you speak. You know, only a few months ago they went round zonal meetings, they went to various zones to take the views of Nigerians. So what is there something that we don't really get well, particularly with our constitution? Because people are talking about devolution of power. He mentioned the local government. Maybe the constitution does not give significant power to local governments or to the state as presently constituted.
No, I think we need to get to the brass tacks. Okay, we need to be real. The truth situation is that the sense of entitlement amongst our politicians is what is driving this. There is this thing that the state must serve them instead of the other way around. Yeah. The state must serve them. It must attend to their fancies. Egos. It must, whatever they talk about, whatever pie in the sky idea they have must be implemented, even if they themselves do not even live up to it. He just talked about, some states. You are supposed to have, the states are actually the place where the testing of the constitution should be done. Yeah. Because that is where every person comes from a state. You are from a state, I'm from a state. Yes. That is where it's done. But go to the states. They have decimated the local governments and all that. That is where the experiment. I mean, we've had constitutions. It was the same Nigerian political elites that have worked against the constitutions we've had. The same guys that asked for them to be appointed to make the constitutions come back.
But why do these things remain popular among Nigerians? Why do Nigerians still want to have a new constitution? They want restructuring.
Because, as he rightly said,
they want that. Because Nigerians can make up.
Because, as he rightly said, the political class have become disconnected with the feelings and wishes of Nigerians. Nigerians want to live together. They want to live at peace with each other. They want to connect with each other. But the politicians want to be entitled. They want to create diversions. They want to create fancies that we must, attend to. And they themselves do not want to hold themselves up for interrogation. They want to talk down on the people, and they don't want to accept responsibility for their failures. They keep shifting the goalpost. So if you now accede to the demands of the weakest of this world, the tumblers of this world, to do what they say we should do, what you are going to have is a conclave of anarchy and talking. We've had several of these constitutions gulping lots and lots of money. We have the National Assembly, we have the State Assembly. These are places where you should generate these ideas, discuss them, and bring them to the fore. But these state governors who are actually calling for these things, they themselves have emasculated these things. So even if you ask for another conference, it's going to be a jamboree as the other jamborees. So we must task the politicians themselves. Look, hey guys, we are tired of subsidizing your fancies. Go and do them.
But how do you get Nigerians to do what he's asking now? To get Nigerians to say, we don't want new constitutions. We want the faithful implementation of the existing constitution. How do you get Nigerians to do that? Because the
government is aiding these confusions and anarchy. And the government don't want to live up to its responsibility by sensitizing Nigerians. I could remember during President Babangida, MAMSA was virtually in every community, talking about government policies. so on and so forth. Where the MAMSANA that has been changed into National Orientation Agency, part of their primary responsibility is to educate Nigeria on every policy of government and to educate Nigerians how to utilize their rights and their franchise. Where are they now in despair of this, all that we are talking about? They virtually have disappeared. National Orientation Agency that even function as part of security agencies because they generate intelligence from the community base.
Interesting.
So there's absence of that to fill up the gap. And then you allowed the politicians that are gullible, in charge of system, in charge of passing out information. You have certain media organizations that ought to have practiced sense of nationalism and patriotism, compromise to satisfy certain political interests of figures or individuals along the line. And you are telling me that the country cannot suffer for it? Unless the government believes that building an institution is more paramount, more important than focusing on individual. Institution is key in stabilizing
what kinds of institutions? You have political parties, you have legislatures, these are the institutions that work in other countries.
No.
So what institutions, what new institutions
let me
do we
give
need
you
to
an
have?
example of what he have said.
Yes.
We have experienced parliamentary system of government in this same country.
Yes.
We shifted to a presidential system of government like America. Yes. The fundamentals in America is very strong. Otherwise, perhaps Trump would have truncated the system. But the institutions are far above any individual selfish interest or ambition. Okay. The institution must protect the states. The state first before any individual. Now, in the situation where you weaken the institutions of states, the country, the citizen must pay for it just the way we are paying for it. Because our institutions are weak. Mention any of the institutions that's supposed to be the pillar of the nation. Start from the security agencies. Apart from recently, that they are bringing adequate equipment to fortify the security apparatus of the country. They were so inexperienced, very weak. They don't have equipment to operate. They are being killed anyhow. How do you define that as a nation? Look at the economy. Who are the economic drivers of the country? When the economy is weak, redundancy is being created. Anarchy is being created. Mischief is being created. Disloyalty is being created. And then when you have a government that do not create a sense of belonging, even for those who rallied around the government campaign, use their resources. You use them and dump to them. Politicians are the most deadly set of people you can deal with in a democratic
politician.
I am a politician,
okay.
Operational one. I'm not a theory one. I participated in election.
Okay.
I have participated in campaigns at the highest level of this country. So I know what I'm talking about. Okay. I have been to every state of Nigeria. I've participated in virtually all the meetings. So what I'm telling you is that the most deadliest people you can deal with, if you do not monitor them, if there are no process to filter their behavior, they can bring the country down. What we are suffering today, politicians are responsible for messing up this because politicians are the one elected as governors. And they are the one that brought their states down. Most of these anarchies are taking place in the states. And the security agencies, let me make this point.
It's easy in Nigeria for people to point accusing fingers against government all the time. What about the citizens?
Let me
Are Nigerian citizens innocent in Nigeria?
Government is responsible for providing law and order.
Okay.
Government officials are elected to correct the system from going wrong.
Okay.
So, in as much as you will say the citizens are misbehaving, is the government providing an example leadership? Is the government creating deterrence for people who feel they are above the law? Is the government dealing with non-state actors taking the state down? Is the government dealing with non-state actors taking the state down?
Okay. Let me bring our second guest in. Illiyasu, it's some people say that a country deserves the kind of government it gets. A people deserve the kind of government that they get. That if you see a government, do look first not at the government itself, but at the people that produce them. What do you say to that?
Well, I would just say I've been a foreign service officer. And I've lived in countries that have advanced systems, advanced institutions of protecting the state.
Yeah.
And I know that in some of these states, they have what they call the deep state.
Okay.
Now, the deep state is invisible, but it's also a very important institution. It is the nexus of security,
institutions, political institutions, invisible but very effective, because theirs is to look at the current situation and look in future and identify key personalities and key areas of shifting political trends and apply. Now, they are like the guardians, custodians of the state, because politicians, in their bid to acquire power and use power, sometimes go overboard. Most times, if they are not checked. So it is the duty of the deep state to ensure that, look, the state does not tip over, and then everybody becomes, a victim of that. And that is where, as we are going now, clearly, the political actors have failed. They have failed the oath they have taken. They have become something like a Frankenstein monster, where they place their own interests above the interests of they don't mind even destroying the state, even with creating tensions in the state. So that is why we need the deep state, the nexus of the security institutions and the other institutions, the judiciary and all kinds of that, to come together and say, look, we must. And that is why, for instance, I'll give an example, a typical example. In Britain, despite the fact that Winston Churchill was very popular, a very popular wartime leader, but because the deep state identified him to be to be a divisive figure after the war, because a lot of people coming from the war were coming with ideas of changes. And so the deep state decided that, look, Winston Churchill, we are not going to have you back in power. The Conservative Party is not going to have you. We are not going to have you back in power. We instead are going to bring in the Labour Party. That's why for the first time in the history of Britain, Labour Party came in. That was engineered by the deep state. And he talked about what do you call him? Trump in America. So you need to have, now that the politicians have become very, very intractable, very, very irascible, and very unreasonable, and they are taking this country to the abyss. This is where the deep state, the nexus of security and other institutions, to come in and then apply the brakes and make sure that we do not get to where the politicians, by their recklessness, are taking us.
Thank you. One day we'll have a chance to talk more deeply about the deep state. But for now, if the Nigerian constitution is being challenged from all corners, shouldn't we just have this referendum once? What would determine whether or not Nigerians are happy or accept the 1999, just to vote yes or no? Should we continue with the 1999 constitution, yes or no?
What creates happiness in the minds of citizens? Is it referendum or good governance?
Okay.
That's the question that every decent person should ask himself. What creates agitations? Is it justice or injustice, or lack of fairness, or lack of equity? These are issues that a decent mind, a patriotic person, should ask himself. Now, if you look at the Nigerian states, where do we get it wrong? We get it wrong because if I am in government, I will bring my family members into government. I'll use government resources around my family members and friends, and forget the majority of the citizens of the states. I will live a luxurious life that's very difficult to define. And in my column malaria of 2000, you can't find it for an ordinary person to protect him from the states. Will that not create an anarchy? Will that not create an agitation? Will that not create people to begin to ask whether the system has been designed to protect them?
Some people are saying that the constitution recognizes 36 states plus one FCT, 774 local governments, in the same country where only 50 years ago or only 30 years ago you had 3 regions or 4 regions, across the entire country. And that these 36 states, like the two of you have been saying, have raised the costs of governance. So shouldn't we change the constitution, even if only to reduce the cost of governance, to say that, okay, let us go back to 3 regions or 6 geopolitical zones or things like that, just to reduce the cost of governance?
You can never have me supporting change of constitution, but I will support amendment of certain section of the constitution.
Okay.
For instance, when it comes to restructuring, I will support some part of restructuring, the land use aspect of restructuring. Nigeria is not a poor country by any definition. But there's laziness in governance. There's lack of creativity to allow state to function, to generate their own revenue, to run their own state, pay their salaries, build institutions, academic, scientific institutions. Every state, if you allow them to function, to bring investors into the state, they can afford to take care of themselves. Go and take inventory of natural endowment God have given to Nigeria. We have no reason to be poor. But because there's lack of leadership, there's lack of vision, there's lack of... Go to Dubai. Minus 25 years out of Dubai. It's a one-man vision that transformed Dubai. Singapore is a one-man vision. Look at Rwanda.
These are city states.
Look at it doesn't mean. If it's a city state, we can have a one city sample in Nigeria among the 30 states you are talking about. But there's laziness in governance. But because some of them were tied to this constitutional, the Land Use Act, that only allow a federal government to guarantee investors to come into a state, even if they are extracting the minerals, the federal government will take the whole money out. Those are areas that I supported. The second area I support...
100% resource control.
Well, it should be, if that would, given our growing population, we have to be creative to accommodate our population, to accommodate employment and other issues. And then, this same population demand to be policed properly. You have about less than 300,000 police, policing over 200 million people. In as much as I support state police, but no governor will be able to pay state police. My argument has been that you have a paramilitary institutions that have already been employed, being paid salary on daily basis. You see most of them under the tree doing nothing. Go and train them.
The last mass, the Katsimas, all these ones.
All of them, the NDLA,
yes,
the road safety, the civil defense, the immigrations, the customs, the airport security.
And the one in the states.
All of them, train them properly. Equip them with weapons. You have developed manpower to deploy anytime you need it. That is how a state developed. It's not about sentiments or emotions.
Let me bring Mali Illiyasu in. So the state policing. So we're now getting to it. We know that there are good reasons then for reviewing the constitution. Do you think state policing is one reason why we should review the Nigerian constitution? Because presently, policing is entirely in the hands of the federal government, and it doesn't look like it's doing a good job of it.
No, I think in the process of trying to restructure the governance and processes in this country, we have to make haste slowly. Because we need to understand the temperament of our people. You can't have democracy without Democrats. And you see what happens in other countries that we are trying to emulate. First and foremost, it is, a constitution works in the minds of the people. If you are not
in the mind,
if you are not minded to behave the way the constitution says you should behave, then it will not work. Because at the end of the day, somebody would now assume the powers of the constitution and even act above the constitution. You have to subordinate yourself to what the constitution says, because it is what we all agreed to implement. And we all agreed that if the constitution says we should do this, we should do it. While we have difficulties, we go to the judiciary. But here in Nigeria, that's why I said the experiment, the state should be the laboratory for the testing the constitution, because that is where everybody belongs to. That is where you can fit everybody to. But it is ironically at the state level where that is absent. So everybody keeps talking, the federal government should do this, but at the end of the day, where it should happen, it's not happening. And I'll tell you this, my colleague here said the right thing. The states are supposed to provide the example of how we can begin to develop, because every state, as I said, has endowment to really make it work. And right now, whatever we're trying to do, whether we have a referendum, are we even going to be sure that the result of that referendum will not be rigged?
That's an important question. And I think that brings us almost to the close of the program. But Shehu Gabam, let me give you the final say on this. If we have a referendum in Nigeria, what would be the role of INEC?
In the first place, I'm not in the support of any referendum. Nigeria have a very sufficient materials, intellectual base that can drive this country. I believe in Nigeria 100%. I pray for the country to develop its potentials. We must respect our laws. We must respect our constitution. I don't pray for any Nigerian to be internally displaced, not to talk of being a refugee in another country. We must tolerate one another. We were destined to be together, despite our diversity. And our diversity should be our strength. And therefore, anybody who is talking about devaluing our country or our citizens in whatever manner because of political interest should be condemned. And the younger generations of the country that constitute 60% are the ones to determine who will be the president of Nigeria.
Interesting.
And if the young people refuse to do the right thing, they will continue to suffer because they have the majority of the votes to determine the change and what kind of change the country is looking forward to.
Thank you very much, my guest. Our diversity, as you said, should be our strength. I think that's one takeaway that Nigerians can remember. So thank you for coming on, Malam Illiyasu, and thank you for being here with us, Malam Shehu Gabam. We have now come to the end of today's program. Thank you for staying with us, and do join us again same time tomorrow. I am Suleiman Suleiman. Enjoy the rest of your day.